And that's us, Ian Stanbury. A bit later than usual, but we're
Bit
getting it
earlier,
done.
more like you mean.
A bit
early.
earlier, too, yeah. So before we get into it, I'll just say that the reason we're a bit later this time is my fault because I lost my voice watching the fights, and I'm not going to lie to our adoring fans that I was hungover. So, but it was mostly down to my voice. So I'll be honest. But what we're going to do, which go on.
Said you're a lucky man to even be hungover.
I know, yeah. It's the joy. Well, I tell you what, I didn't feel like that after Sunday. But yeah, what we'll do is we're usually me and you we try to avoid the MMA talk. We're not going to avoid it at all this week because we're going to break.
Not at all this week.
Yeah, just we'll cram the two into one, so it'll be a fight breakdown. And if we have a bit of time, we'll talk about some other weird shit that pops up in our minds. But I have the card up on my phone here, just not that I need to remember it, but you know what I mean. So I do it in the right order. I had taken so many notes on the prelims, and I've crumpled that piece of paper up and thrown it away because what we've got to talk about on the 5 fights, they're not even worth. Like, there's no point in wasting too much time on the prelims.
No.
So, what's your thoughts?
Anthony Smith?
Hit me up, yeah. The Anthony Smith and Jimmy Crute fight.
It was good to see Smith win. I liked, good guy, isn't he? Like, you can't really go, you can't say anything bad about. It was nice to see him win. He's never going to be. How old is he? He's an old man these days, isn't he?
He's on the wrong side of 35 anyway. I think he's 36, 37 as far as I know.
So it's nice to see him win, get a few paydays. Who knows? He might have another win and get some sort of shot at, or at least like an eliminator to a title shot. Who knows?
It'd be nice to see him. I agree. Because I actually like both fighters. I like Jimmy Crute as well, but I wanted Smith to win because Jimmy Crute has time on his hands. You know what I mean? I don't know what age.
He's only had 11 fights? 12 fights?
He's only young. He's only on the come up, and he is no doubt going to get better. That guy's going to be a problem for people, and he keeps improving because he seems to be getting better. Obviously, didn't do so well in this fight, but in my opinion, he wasn't winning that fight, but he was putting Smith in trouble with his leg kicks. And Smith said that after the fight, that had he angled his kicks a little differently, because Smith just had a good poker face, but he said those kicks that Crute was landing on him were hurting like fuck.
Smith's a good warm up for a knee. Like, he's experienced. He's fought near enough everybody in the division. He's an older man, but he's got experience on his hands against a young lad. He probably should have won it, but it was a good test for the young fella. So
I think it was good matchmaking on the UFC's part, because I don't think it was really using Smith as a stepping stone, and I don't think it was really feeding Crute to the lions either. It was a nice in between. There's
a balance to it. Yeah.
And I thought
it was good.
Sorry, go on.
It was a good fight. It wasn't a bad fight at all either. It was they were all good fights. That's the thing. But I mean, I just was glad to see Anthony Smith win because he's just a fucking dead on bloke, isn't he? And he's a legend to the sport, a legend to the UFC. He's been in it for years.
He's one of those guys. If you're not a full-time fan, you wouldn't know who he is. But he's a guy you'd appreciate when you know his story and you know the kind of character he is. What was interesting enough about this one was I can't remember which commentator said it, but when he got into the cage, they had said there was almost a different side to Anthony Smith because he was, getting the crowd going. He was smiling, whereas usually he comes out and he's real serious. And it was quite cool. So I wonder, did he change something to where his mental game was a bit better? He just looked less serious. Focused, but less amped up. So maybe he was relaxed and maybe it's something different. I don't know, but it could have just been the crowd as well that helped him,
I was gonna say it was how good was it to see a crowd?
Oh.
It was absolutely brilliant just to see a crowd.
I was wondering, I wasn't sure how I'd be with the crowd, and to be honest, some things were a little annoying, little bits. I'm not going to pick too much, but I'd say it anyway. Like it's a thing they do if you've ever been at a UFC crowd. The Ric Flair, the woo, this thing.
Yeah,
It's irritating as fuck. That's the only thing, and the boos. I hate the boos if it's for nothing. But you'll have that, you know what I mean? It's sometimes you get them when especially on a card like that, when it's been such a good fight card that it takes just a little bit of a stalemate or a little slowdown in the fights, and you hear the crowd starting to boo. You're like, man, you're getting spoiled. Shut the fuck up and enjoy the fights,
It was probably one of the best cards he's ever done. Sure, it's probably in the top 5, I'd say, for sure.
I was trying to remember one. There was one either last year or the year before. I couldn't really be last year. I think it was the year before last. Same thing where they put on like 3 title fights, and all 3 fights, the underdog won. And I'm supposed to write that down. I can't remember, but that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that lived up to this.
I definitely find that out.
Yeah, I will, because I was meant to compare that, and again, because I threw away my notes, you see, and that was the only one off the top of my head that I can remember. But no, this one had me like, I was pumped before it, but my God, as soon as from the beginning of the fight, and it was because of the crowd, but from the opening bout on the early prelims, man, everybody went for it. It was a brilliant card, top to bottom.
Florida's a different world, isn't it? They just do not give a fuck about this, do they? It's
they don't
just
give a shit.
Not.
And so many people were shitting on like, there's a lot of newspaper articles giving out about Dana White and the UFC. So
to be honest, they've set the standard for the whole of sport, haven't they? Because like, what was it last? They had fights going from May time last year. Like they were off for like maybe a month, and that was it. Not even that.
It wasn't that long anyway. And like against serious scrutiny, like people who I watch, other podcasters and guys I listen to in the sport, they were saying, no, this is bad. You can't do it. And at the end of the day, like, the world has. I'm on the fence with a lot of this coronavirus shit. Like, to be honest, I'm for some, against some. I'm not going to get into it, but the world has to try and get back to normal at the same time. Like,
yeah,
somewhere we have to try and get back. With the football, with everything, like, it's got to try and go back. So I like credit to Dana White. In fairness, he, like you said, he said he would be the first one to do it. He said he'd be the first one to come back with an event, and the first one to come back with a crowd. And I'm pretty sure he's the first to come back with a crowd as well.
Yeah, well, he's just beating Eddie Hearn, because like there's going to be 70,000 at Canelo Saunders next week in Texas.
Fuck.
Yeah,
it's a good number. Texas are doing their own thing as well, you see.
Oh, different world. They do not give a fuck, do they? It's like Texas and Florida. I didn't realize. I hate that we quote Joe Rogan every show, but I've never ever realized how off their heads they are in Florida since like hearing from him. Like, he just says different world over there.
In Texas, you mean?
No, Florida.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about Texas where he was living.
No, both. But Florida, like, because he lived there or something, and he said they're off there. There's only certain things that should happen in the world that happen in Florida.
Yeah, he does.
I kind of understand that now, to be honest, since this pandemic.
I've seen on some of his podcasts where he'd they talk about something crazy that happened in the news, and he would say, "I bet that happened in Florida," and they check it up, and of course, lo and behold, it's happened in Florida. And it's always when it's crazy shit like that. But
you can kind of tell that Masvidal is from Florida. Yeah, he's a nutcase, like, isn't he?
He's just that different breed. Before we get off that Smith fight, actually, because me and you were talking before about the calf kicks and things like that. You see what happens when you hit the nerve proper dead on? Like what happened to Jimmy? Isn't it strange to see what happens to the leg? That no matter how much they shake it out or how much they try and, it just doesn't. Because it's only ever, I've felt it a little bit in training, but never to that extent. I always kind of wanted to feel it, but at the same time, it looks so fucked up because his leg just wouldn't come back no matter what he did. Like,
no. But on to the next one, where the no strike win.
That's yeah, because
that is the worst leg break I've seen since Eduardo broke his leg for Arsenal.
That's a good comparison. That's a good comparison, actually. Yeah. Fuck yeah, that was a bad one too. That's actually a good comparison.
Honestly,
the break for me. The break was bad enough. It was when he tried to step on it. I was like,
and it just snapped.
And you know that because I've been listening to some of his or reading some of his updates, because I watched it in slow motion, the sick bastard that I am. And at one point you almost see the bone, a little bit of a point coming through the skin. And I was thinking, man, that was almost there's a thing, that a compound fracture where the bone comes through the skin. But he said in his update that there was a compound fracture. So the bone pierced his skin, but it also pierced his calf muscle. The worst part, he said the worst part of his injury is that his calf muscle has been pierced and there's an infection. The bones are put back together and all that now, like, but Man, it's fucked up.
Like I did something similar when I played. I broke my leg and I tried to get up and stood on it, and it didn't fucking bend like that. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't. It was the size of a golf ball on my calf, basically a lump.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure standing up did that, and I could just feel the pain. Like just seeing that just brought back every bit of pain that I felt that day. It was
It's not
no, it
nice to
was.
look at. It's so strange that I know
I wouldn't
people.
even want to. I wouldn't even want to claim the win. If I was Hull, I wouldn't even want to claim the win. To be honest,
That's where it's hard, you see, because Hall is one of these guys. Is all the ability. Like I don't want to say he's as good a striker as Adesanya, but he has that potential. Like Uriah Hall is quality striking, quality, has all that Adesanya, Anderson Silva kind of ability. Just mentally, for some reason, has never been able to live up. Has lost the battles before he's got into the cage so many times. He was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he was one of these guys that you would have bet, like you would have bet, this guy is going to be a champion. This is your next champion in the middleweight division. Just beating the piss out of people. Back spinning kick knockouts. Everything was a knockout, and always like just looked a level above all these guys. And for some reason, mentally, he has just not been there, whatever it is. And then, of course, as much as I felt bad for Weidman, I was like, fucking Uriah Hall now can't really claim this as a big win. Even if he claims it, people are not going to look at it like as he beat Chris
it's
Weidman.
not a win. It was a freak accident, nothing more. It was.
Now, credit to him, he did say he'd give Weidman the shot again. I don't know if Weidman is coming back.
That's what I mean. Like that's a career. You could easily career-ending injury,
especially at Weidman's age. Like Weidman, I think is almost 40. You know,
is he?
Yeah, and had a heavy career too. You know, a lot of not knockouts, bad knockouts, but he's had a few heavy. Not like if you go back and look at what Yoel Romero did to him, diving in for a takedown. Yoel springs up with the knee and splits his head wide open, like one of the the flow of blood that came out after that was the worst I'd ever seen.
I don't really know Weidman. I've not really seen too much of him, to be honest. Is like leg kicks a big part of his game or something?
Not really. Wrestling is.
No.
And
right.
I didn't want to do this, but I have to because I have to touch on it. One thing about that is when I looked over it, it was not the smartest way to throw a kick if you're going to throw it that heavy, because it was a blind. He threw it blindly, like you're not really supposed to look. You know from listening to boxers and boxing yourself that you don't ever really look where you're throwing. You're supposed to kind of look in the neutral area so they can't read where your hands or legs are going. But if you're throwing a leg kick and you're not going to look, or you're not going to at least be super sure where the leg is, you got to set it up with a jab or something. And he did a step and proper baseball bat swing with his leg. It's easy in hindsight to say this, you know what I mean? Plenty of guys throw their legs that way, but it's just to be thrown it so fucking hard, man.
It was just a horrible thing to say. I don't know. It just looked freakishly hard compared to you look at when Poirier beat McGregor. It just looked so much more controlled and like disciplined with it. That was just a fucking whack and hope for the best, wasn't it?
It's because it's all, especially now with guys throwing these calf kicks. Because as I said to you before, usually it was always on the meat of the thigh. Now they're thrown to the calf because it does more damage quicker. But the problem with the calf is it's a lot closer to the shin where guys block with, and it's also close to the knee. I mean, you block with your knee. Imagine what that's going to do to your fucking shin bone.
Oh, yeah, good.
Which is what happened in that fight, like.
Yeah, well, he just got fucking broken in half, pretty much. So
it's one of the I have no problem looking at that shit, but I would not like to try and imagine the feeling. And thankfully the camera, because I've noticed sometimes in the UFC they're bad for that, but lately they haven't. It's the camera. I don't mind them replaying the injury, but I'm glad that they didn't show him in the cage in agony. I like that they turned it in. There's no need to see that. Like, the commentators were kind of saying that Weidman is on the ground in a lot of agony, so that's bad enough to hear that. You don't need to see it, and he doesn't need to be looking back seeing him fucking self on the canvas fucked up, basically. But credit to Uriah Hall. I know for me it sounds bad, but I don't know if I can really class that as a win. He beat him, albeit because he checked the kick. He did beat him, so yes, it should go down as a win. But did he really beat Chris Weidman? It's up in the air for me because I wasn't sure. In my opinion, I actually wasn't sure who I was going to say won that fight. I was completely up in the air with that one. I had no idea.
I just would have had a non-contact. I don't know. But then
you in his head it should be a no contest, but I think he deserves to win on paper because I mean he checked the kick.
Yeah.
So, but
well, he took a baseball bat of a kick and took it like so. Yeah.
So it's just whether or not, in terms of what the UFC do with Uriah Hall next, I don't know. Are they going to picture that? Again, obviously it's a win on paper and it should be, but I don't know if they're going to look in the wider picture of things and say that he beat Chris Weidman. So are they going to put him on to the next guy, or they're going to kind of say, here's another Chris Weidman level kind of guy, you know?
It's interesting. Did you see Anthony Smith's comments when he saw the leg break saying like he's the best person I've ever trained with and I can't believe he's ever lost? I was quite surprised at that.
I'm glad you reminded me of that actually. That was interesting to see that Anthony Smith in there doing his fucking interviews and he hears the crowd roar. I've never seen that happen before. It was an interesting little clip that was going around, like that he was there getting his interview done and you hear the crowd roar in the background. He's looking going, what the fuck happened? I didn't know he trained with Chris Weidman, but like a lot of people put him down as one of the best.
Underachievers, kind of like an underage.
I think he's slightly an underachiever, but it's not to insult him. It's just I think there's a lot of other middleweights I put before him. But at the same time, I have heard tons of fighters say there's a list of fighters who will tell you that Chris Weidman is an absolute beast in the gym. And Anthony Smith is a new guy and said it. Now, I'm not trying to insult, but I will say that in terms of like when he beat Anderson Silva twice, one was one of those leg breaks, and the other was Silva being far too cocky with his head movement and getting caught.
Was that Weidman who beat him in that?
Obviously,
I've seen it.
Yeah, he was the guy to put the stand to be the guy to finally beat Anderson Silva. It was Chris Weidman. No one expected it.
Nice. Fuck me. Fair play to him. I literally know nothing about his history at all. Like to me, I can say I'm a casual.
But you know the story with the Anderson Silva leg break, don't you?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
Tell me this.
Let me hit you with some facts. So you know that Anderson Silva broke his leg the exact same way against Chris Weidman. The exact same way. Yeah, with a leg kick that Chris Weidman checked, Silva's leg snapped completely.
Fuck.
That's why people are so shocked, because they're wondering how, like, the best thing I had heard was actually Brendan Schaub and I think Luke Thomas were saying it, that if you scripted that into Hollywood, if you wrote that down in a script, gave it to Hollywood, they'd be like, that's unbelievable. Like, how could it happen to one guy and then it happened to him in the next one?
Straight after.
It's fucking insane. Like, now people are saying that they're kind of almost afraid there might be a bit of bad luck on either Uriah Hall, because the next person to fight Uriah Hall, or he'll break his leg, whatever. But obviously that's not true. But
mate, if something like, imagine if that happens, Uriah Hall, the next one, his leg breaks or he breaks somebody's leg. Yes, something's going on there.
No one's going to want to fight him. They'll have to just hand him the belt.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was pretty sick, but like in my opinion, I've seen guys come back, like Silva came back from that, and I think he was, if not the same age, he was older than Weidman, but at the same time came back a lot quicker than people expected. And he was not Anderson Silva, but he was okay. So hopefully,
if Weidman's strength is wrestling, and surely he just wants to stick to that. If he is to come back, he kind of wants to mold these guys and have as little kicks, like as little striking as possible, especially with your legs.
He to be fair, he is always, I say he's a wrestler. He is a wrestler, but he has okay striking. He's not a Ben Askren by any means. Like he's willing to stand and strike with guys, you know. But like you wouldn't exactly call him a kicker, you know. You wouldn't say, "Oh, Weidman." You wouldn't say Weidman is known, like he's known as a wrestler for his wrestling, you know.
Mate, you've got me obsessed with Ben Askren. Though I didn't realize how highly rated he was like 3 years ago. Apparently they were calling for him versus Khabib at one point.
The people were crying, like people outside of the UFC. I'm not going to include myself because I'm not. I knew who Ben Askren was, but I wasn't as deep into other. I'll watch a little bit of Bellator and one, but my thing is the UFC. It's so much to keep up with in the first place. It's hard to keep up with the rest of it. It's not that I don't like it. I haven't got the time to keep up with it all. But I was having a look at Ben Askren, and for years people were crying out to the UFC, saying, "Come on, you got to get him in there. Get him in against GSP. Get him in against Khabib." And just happened a bit too late. The only problem is, as well, with him is even if you know his record, you still find it hard to look at him and say, "This is the guy," because he's such a fucking lame. He looks like a fucking history teacher, you know.
What is it? A Greek statue they call him or something, isn't it?
That's what it looks like, yeah. But at the same time, like now, of course, now the stories are coming out. Did you hear that? Well, this is like rumors going around, but some guy that works with Freddie Roach in the gym. I don't know the name of Freddie Roach's gym. I can't fucking remember. Do you know it?
I don't even know it, to be honest.
Anyway, apparently that Ben Askren actually stood him up. Like that, he went in, did some training, got some pictures and all that, and didn't really turn up much more after that. So he didn't even train for fucking. This is not the shit on Jake Paul. I'm just saying, I really don't think Ben Askren gave a flying fuck about that fight.
Of course, what did he earn? $1 million from it? And
more than he's ever earned before, anyway.
Exactly. I mean, he probably knew deep down. He even said, if he is a good boxer, I'm probably going to lose.
Yeah.
And like, you can't be more. He seemed almost unbreakable. I thought, like, he just doesn't give a fuck.
I think as well, that's what people need to credit him for, because even after the Masvidal loss, he had up on Twitter. I mean, you're talking probably 20 minutes, maybe even an hour later. Well, that didn't go to plan. You know, and that's a great attitude to have. Like, you know, it's that's the hardest part of the game. You imagine, like, for young guys coming up and stepping out into the crowd like that. That's the guy you want to follow. You want to follow guy whose mental is like that.
I was about to say, if I could give everybody in the world someone's mental attitude, I think it'd be his mental attitude. It's just like shit happens, and he really doesn't seem to give a fuck. Whereas,
and you can shit talk him all you want as well. Like,
he's actually, I gotta say, never really. He's most famous for that, obviously, the Masvidal being knocked out, and probably now knocked out by Jake Paul, but. Honestly, I didn't realize he was so highly thought of throughout UFC. Well, in the MMA sport, anyway.
Yeah, he and his brother run wrestling schools. That's what I was saying. Like people need to remember he is not stuck for money. It was just a nice payday for him, just a nice bonus payday. But he's okay in terms of his career and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, I'd like to have seen him versus Khabib, just like wrestling. I'd back Khabib every day, but I mean,
well, if they're talking just wrestling, I don't know. I don't know enough about it. But if you're talking MMA, I still think Khabib beats him.
No, definitely. But wrestling,
grappling, it would have been a great match. But just, I think Khabib has like better ground and pound, and Khabib, like you see Khabib stand up against Justin Gaethje was a little bit of a step up even compared to what he'd had previously. So. Yeah, but you just at the same time you never fucking know. Like, for all we know,
you never know. No.
He could have been his biggest kryptonite. Ben Askren could have been the guy. You know, how crazy would that have been? Anyway,
it's like I say. Carry on.
No. But go on. I'll just
no. Let's move on to Shevchenko, isn't it?
Yeah,
and Andrade.
I'm just afraid we're going to fucking run out of time, and we still won't get through this card. People will be shitting on the fucking.
We're good. Mate, it's only. I got literally like another 40 minutes. Plenty of time.
Oh, we're sweet. So, but anyway, we'll touch on this one, which was fucking again. I don't know what you do with Shevchenko. I really don't. She's a bit like Amanda Nunes. I don't know what to do with them.
Is she? I watched their fight, the second fight. Surely Shevchenko won.
I can see both sides, to be honest, but my new way of arguing with those kind of things is, as long as it's not a robbery, I'm happy for it to go either way. So if I watched it, I can't remember why, but I thought Nunes won it just barely. I think if I remember well, it's because I thought her shots were just a little heavier, doing more damage. But that's all. But I mean, you're talking a whisker. I can see why people thought Shevchenko won it. So yeah,
because I didn't realize. I just saw I was going through Nunes and I just saw split decision. I was like, "Fuck! What mad woman went the distance with Amanda Nunes?" And so I was like, "Right, I have to see the fight." And I thought, "Fuck, that was it was arguable, but I thought Shevchenko won. I really did.
But that's it. I can, to be honest, if I go back and watch it now, I might go, fuck, yeah, Shevchenko won. You know, it's just
Surely
it's
they got to
fights
fight. They've got to fight again. Like there's nobody else really.
I don't
But I think
know.
Nunes seems to have reached a different level.
I don't know because I see why people want to do it, but me and you talked about this before as well, where I always thought there was no need. Remember, I said there was no need for Max Holloway to get a third shot at Volkanovski unless he done something really special, which of course Max Holloway made me put my foot in my mouth because he went and done something fucking special. Not that Shevchenko isn't Shevchenko, but sometimes it's nice. Like I think we're too keen to get these people to fight each other. Why not just allow them dominate and fucking enjoy it as well? It's not that I don't think they should, but I think when Nunes is 2-0, because even if Shevchenko wins, then you gotta do it again.
Do another one, probably. Yeah.
So for me, it doesn't, put it this way, it doesn't get me excited at all. Like, and people, there is people that are saying, oh, but it's boring now. I don't think Shevchenko is boring. I don't think Nunes is boring by themselves. I watch all their fights. Like, I love watching them dominate.
Yeah, like she is she's good, and she's fucking like.
And never.
You could almost say they're equal. I can't, since watching that, I can't say that. I just say her and Nunes are equal. Like we spoke before in here, and I said Nunes is undoubtedly, but I just don't. They're equal. They're just. It's Ronaldo, Messi together.
That's
if you get one.
The only comparison I can think of, because. But it's a bit like that thing where people want to go, no, Ronaldo's better, no, Messi's better. At the same time, maybe take us, because I've had that same debate, and then you're kind of like, listen, maybe just take a step back and fucking enjoy this, because when these retire, which they're both not far off, we're never going to see it again. It's a bit like a Khabib.
No, never.
People now, ever since Khabib is gone, like Khabib has always been boring. Now he's gone. People are like, oh, it'd be great to get Khabib back, because they're never appreciated when they're there fighting, And I think it's the same with Nunes and Shevchenko. Like, I know Nunes is the two-way champion, and they're talking about the heavier class she's in, which is featherweight. Oh, maybe we should fucking shut down that division. Well, why shut it down? Let her dominate. She's got to beat everybody twice. Let her do it. I mean, let's enjoy it. Let's watch her beat the fuck out of these women. Let's see one of them try and get better.
Can't see it happening.
No, it's like unless you want to allow two of them in at the same time. Like,
I was gonna say you need. I don't even think two. I actually don't even think. I'd say you need three.
She'll beat the piss out of one of them holding the other. But no,
pretty much.
The crazy thing about the Shevchenko fight was, like everyone was saying, for Andrade, it was, heavy pressure, like her Mike Tyson style versus, and her grappling versus the striking of Shevchenko. So Shevchenko turns around and says, oh, that's what you think? Here's some fucking grappling, and takes her down, controls her for the entire fight.
I was about to say, her wrestling was brilliant, wasn't it?
Quality. And that has improved. And even her sister, her older sister, who's what's her? Antonina Shevchenko. She is not as good as Valentina, but has shown serious improvements in her grappling recently as well. So like the two of them are just when you think they've reached their peak, then it's like, oh, here's another fucking level. Here's another. Same with Nunes. They just seem to always eventually they're probably going to hit that, like I've said to you before, that day where it's just not their day. Their head is not in it, their body, something's injured, and you get another fighter who's on their day. Maybe that's what's going to happen. I do not see it. I don't see it, but unless they fight each other. Yeah. And I don't want to, I'll be honest, I can understand why the UFC would put them against each other, but I think, why? I let them fucking dominate the way they're dominating, and like, sometimes you don't need one to cancel out the other. What would have been a good fight would have been, which we'll get on to in a few minutes, is Zhang Weili versus Shevchenko. But don't think that's going to happen now, obviously, which we'll get on to.
Unless she... I mean, yeah. Like, what's the differences in the weights? Like, how many weight classes is there for the women? And like, what's the separation in weight, if you get what I mean?
Fuck, it's a good question.
There's like... Because it was straw weight that Zhang Weili was in, wasn't it?
Yeah, you have straw weight, which is your smallest. Then you have, I always mix them up. Straw weight. I know Nunes.
Bantamweight, featherweight.
Yeah.
Straw weight, bantamweight.
There's one more, because you have straw weight, which is that's your smallest. So straw weight is where Zhang Weili. Then you have the next one, which is Shevchenko. I just can't remember the fucking name of it.
It's not bantamweight, is it?
No, bantamweight is Nunes. So you bantamweight and featherweight is the two divisions that Nunes has. Then you have strawweight, and why the fuck? It's not atomweight. No, shit, it's not coming to me. It's not bantamweight. It's flyweight, is it? Yeah, it's flyweight.
Probably.
Yeah, no, it's flyweight. I think. Yeah. So you have, what do we say? Strawweight, flyweight, bantamweight, and featherweight, and the difference is
probably what, 20 pounds maybe from strawweight up to featherweight.
I think it's 125, 135, 135, 145. What the fuck is? Yeah, 135, 145. Yeah.
So you could fight. You could pretty much go to every division, really, unless you're absolutely small or
you
as
could,
fuck or too big.
You could have, let's say, ladies from the flyweight or this strawweight could definitely step up and challenge Shevchenko. And as you've seen, Shevchenko was able to step. Now, the problem is the featherweight. The featherweight is just too big for all of those other ladies except Amanda Nunes, and they're struggling to find featherweights. The UFC are struggling to find featherweights to challenge Nunes. There's not an urge for them. There's not a want for them. There's not enough of them out there. But
hey, I think the only person who could challenge her is some 6'2" Tongan brute of a woman. Pretty much.
Fucking yeah. I don't like as hard as it is for Shevchenko. I don't know what the fuck you're gonna do with Nunes. I know we've talked about this so many times, but I have no idea. I just think she has a bit of she has a new name coming up in Pena, who wants to fight her, but she's not going to beat her. Like, in my honest opinion, she's not going to beat her. But I still think just let them fucking dominate their classes. Let's enjoy them while they're there. I mean, if you're lucky, you've got another probably 2-3 years out of each of them at best. That's being hopeful, because I mean, I don't even know if we have that long.
It's probably not enough opponents at all. It's like you like you say, you'd have to go through most of them twice over.
Yeah, and I mean, at the same time, do you imagine being them? Like, imagine having to go through the same. Imagine you beat the piss out of some guy, and then you got to go back and fight him again. You're like, is this really it? And they're probably not. Yeah. I don't know how well they're being paid. I'm sure they're being paid reasonable money, but they're still not getting paid that kind of fucking Ben Askren, Jake Paul money, which is a disgrace to say.
It's like, that's going to have to change surely, because surely people are going to see the differences in money and they're going to go, right, let's go and box instead of like going to UFC, because hey, look, like I say, career high pay for Ben Askren for an absolute fucking joke of a card.
Yeah.
But like, you can't blame the man, can you? Really?
No, but
like $1 million.
Like Dana White has come out, like, he's kind of shitting, arguing with Jake Paul. He put out a statement saying, why the fuck did they keep coming after my guys? Like, maybe I'll have to send them another lawsuit. But, which it only clicked with me recently, was, I think, again, Brendan Schaub, I stole this off, or Joe Rogan or something. No, it would have been Brendan Schaub. But they were saying about how there was a big argument between, Jake Paul and Dana White. But yet Jake Paul was still at the UFC the last day. If there was a legit problem with the two of them, Jake Paul would have not got inside the doors. Yet he got front row. Like, Dana White is in on all this bullshit.
Yeah, he's such
to an extent.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not setting these fights up, but he's still got his hand in it a little bit in case.
He's getting like he definitely have got a bit of money for, like, because Askren was still contracted to the UFC as well, wasn't he? So he must have got a little something to allow this.
It would have been something, or it would have been he would have had something under the table, like maybe, I don't know, whatever. Maybe he might have told that, he might have even just helped Askren to hope Askren was going to beat the shit out of Jake Paul. You never know, like. But at the same time, Dana White's a powerful guy. If you truly have an issue with him, you would not be in those doors. Like, you would not be front row to be able to talk into the fucking ear of DC. It's all to be able to set up something big eventually, which you're probably looking at down the road. Sorry.
I wonder who it is. I wonder who is, like, the person they got in mind. I mean, surely not McGregor, is it?
He's probably, but I don't think he's looking to set that up. But maybe Dana White is paving the way in case Jake Paul gets a big enough name and people start to believe But I mean, they're talking about Kamaru Usman fighting Jake Paul.
Mate, that would be an absolute massacre. That would be a
Like
massive
how
one
how
to
do
have.
people believe? Listen. I get it. He's not a boxer, but he would fucking massacre Jake
He's
Paul.
not. He's not a bad boxer. I mean, he's not a bad boxer. I think he's one of the better boxers
He's a quality. Like
in the UFC.
people don't want to call him a boxer because he's an MMA, but he's a fucking quality boxer. He's got solid hands.
Right. What's the
Moving
next one?
Moving on to we have
Zhang Weili.
Zhang Weili and Rose Namajunas. Fuck, this was another fight I had no idea was going to go the way it did. If you asked me beforehand who I thought would win, I probably would have went a long answer about it. But I tell you what I did not think would happen was Rose Namajunas knocking out Zhang Weili. I did not expect that. Did not think she'd knock her out. It's insane.
It looked like she was like her kick. It looked like she was going for the legs and then just out of nowhere, straight to the head.
That was total deliberate. I think they found a read. I didn't, and I'd love to be able to lie and say that I saw this before the fight, but I didn't. I heard people point it out afterwards that Weili has this thing. I can't really show you, but she has a thing where if you watch that fight back, you see Weili brings both of her legs together and leans back, and that's the thing she does to pull her legs out of the way of a leg kick, and she's done it in quite a few fights. And I think Rose, and in particular Rose's coach Trevor Whitman, I think they picked up on that. They were like, if you fake low, you're going to catch your clean. Yeah. Which it was such a tidy kick, such a nice kick. Like, and Rose, the cool thing about it is she is up there. She has the ability to be up there with your Shevchenkos and your Nunes as a superstar. Like, who's going to beat her kind of thing. Problem is, very like we're talking about Uriah Hall earlier. Her mentality. It's not even that it's weak. It's just she allows herself to get completely overwhelmed. Like they have, if you actually go back someday when you're bored and listen to her and her husband, Pat Barry, on Joe Rogan, and you hear all the little rituals they have, like they have things where if they get a bad aura or a bad feeling in a place, they have to leave. That bad feeling could be anything, but they've all these, that's only one example. There's a few of them where they have these things of like, you know, she's religious and stuff like that, but it's not even about that. They just have this thing. It's all about like if you feel like your day is going bad,
spirituality and all that shit.
And if your day is not going the way, if it's not going well, it plays on her mind. And if you watch when she walks into the cage, which is pretty cool, like when she's screaming, "I'm the best, I'm the best." You know, she keeps screaming it over and over before the fight starts. And like I was getting pumped seeing that part. And then obviously she wins by knockout, and you see her husband, Pat Barry, who was a good fighter in his day too. Probably the worst ground fighter ever, but a great fucking striker. But he went over to her screaming, "What the fuck did I tell you? You're the best. You're the best." And it was just a cool thing to see that she probably got over that hump of, you know, her mentality holding her back. She is, like I said, she's up there. She is up there with the best ever if she gets her head out of the way.
I'm quite surprised because she trains with Gaethje and Usman, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite surprised training with them that she's not so mentally on the ball, if you get what I mean.
Like, yeah, I think it's something. I'm not going to say this exactly because I'm not sure, but she was on The Ultimate Fighter back in the day as well, and something happened when she was a kid with her family. Something to do, like, whether it was basically a bad childhood. I don't want to be sure, but something like that. I remember clearly she was crying on The Ultimate Fighter giving her interview about something bad that happened to her when she was a kid, but I need to double check before I say it. But I think it comes from stuff like that, you know, being a kid. I don't think, like, that's why I wouldn't even say, like I said, I wouldn't even say she's weak mentally. It's just like an overwhelming thing. She just allows things to get the better of her sometimes. But then when, like, if you even go back to when she fought Joanna, and Joanna was up in her face at the weigh-in screaming at her, like, "Curse, I'm going to fuck you up." And Rose Namajunas stares at her and just keeps praying, like saying some of the Lord's Prayer or something, just keeps whispering it, looking directly at you, and Joanna screaming at her, no reaction, no blink. And that was twice. Like, as scary as Joanna Jędrzejczyk is, this was even scarier to see Rose not blink, nothing, just stare at her and keep praying. You see her lips going, because Rogan asked her afterwards. He said, "Your mouth was moving. What were you saying?" She said, "Oh, I was just reciting the Lord's Prayer." And I was like, "What the fuck, man?"
Okay, now.
So she's got that side of, like, that invincibility side to her, just when she gets out of her own way, which hopefully she can do, because she is. And like this, she's the only woman to ever regain a title, which I didn't know until I heard afterwards. I was trying to think. I was like, no, somebody else has. And I was like, no, actually, no one else has. It's pretty crazy.
The only two-time world champion.
The only person to regain her title, exactly. Any woman who has ever lost it has never regained it back so far.
She lost to who was it? Who did she lose it to? Jessica
Andrade, the lady that fought Shevchenko. And to be honest, she was putting on, and I've said this before, she was putting on one of the best performances ever before she lost that fight. That was the one where she got slammed on her head and knocked out. She was jabbing I had never her movement, jab, just nice, really quick, no power, just touching Andrade's face, and Andrade could do nothing, couldn't get her head out of the way. Rose just kept touching her, kept moving, getting under her takedowns, moving out of the way of everything, and she just got caught up against the cage, lifted and slammed on her fucking head, and then lost. But she was beating the piss out of Jessica Andrade in the first few minutes of that fight. I was looking at it like I was in the middle of even sending a text to my brother, like, this is going to be an absolute massacre. Next minute she gets slammed on her fucking head and sent to hell for a brief moment. But no, she is. She hasn't
fought Shevchenko, has she?
No, and you know what? I don't think they will fight, because another thing I didn't know was apparently they're like not in the same camp, but they're mates and training partners. Yeah,
right.
So which is kind of annoying, but at the same time,
I don't like that when it gets in the way, to be honest. Like, you see that with, I'm not even saying it's a completely irrelevant fight, but it's, well, like, didn't Usman say never move up and fight Adesanya? Because they're like, he'd rather have two Nigerian world champions.
Yeah. But you know the funny thing about that is, because I was going to use him as an example. He says that, but yet he had no problem fighting his teammate. Oh man, he's the guy he fought in his last fight.
The Brazilian fella,
Gilbert Burns.
Costa.
No,
Burns.
Gilbert Burns.
Burns.
Yeah. Him and Kamaru were good training partners and like close. But he just said he had no problem. But at the same time, that was probably more Burns saying to Kamaru, "Listen, I want to challenge you for the title." But I like that. I think that's a cool thing to see. I like when two guys can be friends and say, "Listen, let's have a crack.
Have a scrap."
Yeah. You know? But some people can't. I understand it at the same time. And I suppose there's also the element of you've probably shown that person everything you've got in the training room, you know.
In boxing, like Joseph Parker has said he would never fight Tyson Fury because they're like proper good mates. And I find that weird because the likelihood is Fury is going to be the one with the belts, all the belts in maybe, a year's time. So you're basically admitting that I will never challenge for the titles, basically. Fury's going to dominate. Unless Joshua beats him and he has a chance, Fury's going to pretty much go undefeated for the next, I'd say, 3 years. And it's basically Parker saying, I'm giving up my chances to be world champion.
I don't get that either. I wonder sometimes, is it a case of like, because you can't be happy, not like, what are you, especially in boxing, because realistically, there is no money fights in boxing unless it's for the title. Like, I've never heard of a money fight unless it's for a title, unless you're unifying the titles, really, isn't it?
Well, depend. I mean, you can get pretty much. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot more. Like, let's say Dillian White and Andy Ruiz were fighting. Like, that would still be a high grossing fight. Like, that would be a very high pay-per-view, and I'd say they'd earn, let's say, it'd be a 50. That would be 50-50 down the middle, I would say. Maybe White, maybe 50. No, because Ruiz has been champion. It might even be 60-40 to Ruiz. I'd still say White would earn £5 million, maybe something like that. No, yeah, like actually that's a lot, because Eddie Hearn put out he offered Ruiz something like that, £5 million to fight White, plus whatever was on pay-per-view. So it's still money in it. Obviously not. Have you seen what Joshua and Fury are getting?
Oh yeah, it was
75 million each guaranteed, and
that's
obviously paper.
Yeah, I mean
that's their flat rate, and then obviously pay-per-view on top, and it will probably be the highest buy-in pay-per-view potentially.
It would have to be. It'd have to be up there, I'd imagine. Like,
I don't think it'll beat Pacquiao Mayweather, but it'll in the UK. It'll definitely I don't know. You know what? It might actually beat it.
The thing about this one, I know Pacquiao Mayweather was probably bigger scale, but this one is the two boys in their prime, so that's
Yeah,
where it might oversell it a little bit. That's as much as I can give on the boxing side of it, but
and it's heavyweights.
and it's heavyweights, which always even in the UFC it always sells that bit more, like when it's talented heavyweights. But fuck, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear that kind of money. I know boxing is always there. The one thing about boxing drives me crazy is that you always make these fights too late. But thankfully, with this one, it's not. This is now they're making it. It's going to happen, and it's brilliant for boxing. It's brilliant if you're a boxing fan. Because there's a lot of as I said, frustration with boxing. But this is what needs to happen. These kind of things where they make the fight in their prime. These two boys, you're going to find out who the best is, and that's it. But it is true what you're saying. That's a good point. Like I know you're saying about Parker, how like what is your aim? What is your goal if you're not going to challenge for the title?
Yeah, not that he is like after because he's fighting with he's training with Andy Lee now, and I think he will show big improvements. Like he's been with Kevin Barry since the beginning of his career, so I think he will improve a lot, and I think he will beat Chisora coming this weekend. But I'd say he's top 10, Parker, but I can't see him challenging for a title. Maybe in a few years, maybe Fury will just retire. I could see it. You know what Fury's like? He could literally say he wants to fight till he's 45, and then he will say, I want to fight Joshua, and then hang up the belt. So you don't really know.
Yeah, Fury's the kind of guy that could dip out after this fight and then make all his money in fucking, exhibitions and having fun.
But I can also, let's say he retires, let's say he'll beat Josh, and they'll fight again. I think he will fight Dylan White, and he might even fight Wilder again. Actually, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he does. But I can see him then retiring and then coming back in like 5 years at like 38, and then challenging whoever is top dog at the time.
And he could do it.
That's the thing. He could, if he stayed in shape, he could.
If he stays away from the partying, I know people have been worried lately about his partying, but he looks in shape to me. He looks light as fuck.
He's training. He's training with Parker.
I think
and he's in America at the minute.
It's because he's been putting up videos of like, dancing and all that. But I mean, he just looks like he's not like it doesn't look like he's on the piss and he just looks like he's having fun. That's Fury's always been that way. He looks fucking. Yeah, no. To be honest, he looks slimmer to me than he has ever been. He looks super light.
Probably is. I think he's going to be. I think that proves the way he's going to fight. He's just going to box and move against Joshua. I think it could be quite a boring fight, to be honest.
Yeah, but Fury has no problem doing that. If he gets the win, he has no problem doing that.
Exactly, but I don't think it. I think it will just be another fight against Klitschko. But I think Joshua will catch him at least. He'll catch him once, maybe not put him down, but I think he'll trouble him once or twice anyway.
Yeah, that's
Tony. I think Tony Bellew describes if he doesn't beat if Joshua doesn't beat him in 6 rounds, he won't win the fight. If he doesn't knock him out within 6 rounds, he won't win it because Fury he's just too clever. He'll know everything he'll know every little moves trick that you've tried within those 6, and yeah, like you say, I think he will just box.
Joshua can get tired. I've seen it happen in some fights where he's not necessarily gassed out. But you see where he's just a little bit slow. He slows down in rounds, and then it's like he gets a second win kind of thing. So that could play against him too,
I wouldn't say that's happened in his last 2 fights, though, because, I mean, he's slimmed down. He looks a lot lighter on his feet and all that. So I would.
Yeah, no, I'm looking back at. Yeah, I haven't read. To be honest, I didn't really pay attention to his last 2 fights. So that's me talking about all the fights.
Either way. Everybody can't wait to see it, especially here. So.
Oh yeah, fuck! It's gonna be a cracker, and thankfully they're getting paid. That's what I want to hear. Get all the fucking money. It should be the same in the UFC. We'll get through these last 2 fights.
One more, isn't it? We're on this, man.
Oh fuck, we are too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. So we got through the car quicker than I thought. So I'm trying to think of that I had to say about Shevchenko. No, we got through all. Oh no, we were talking about Namajunas. So yeah, back to that. One of the best ever, and I would like to see her go on a run, just like Nunes and Shevchenko. Let her wipe out that division now as well. and then see how she goes from there. Let's see her have an actual title reign rather than win it and then lose it, because
Lose it, yeah.
yeah, the title has been like a fucking hot cake, you know what I mean, or a hot bun, whatever the fuck the saying is, where it keeps moving hands. But yeah, great win, and man, delighted to see her. When you know the kind of mental battles she has, and you see her win. Another thing worth noting is what we were talking about. They all come from the same camp. Is their coach Trevor Whitman, who has completely changed not changed Kamaru Usman's game, but really helped his boxing, really helped
Yeah.
fucking Namajunas' everything, and he's also helped Gaethje completely change. Like, I know Gaethje's not a title holder, but Gaethje was this wild swinger who got into wars, all of a sudden turned into a fucking quality
He's
boxer.
this control, yeah.
It's controlled fury now,
You've always said when he beat Ferguson, it was something like in the second round where he said, "Stop trying to take his head off with every shot and control it, pick your shots."
And like, just
so,
because the hardest thing I would imagine to do as a coach is, you imagine you get somebody in who's never fought before. That's nice and easy. You can work with that. You get a guy who's been there, has won belts, has been beaten the best, and you got to try and change his game. That must be so hard to do. To get a Kamaru Usman or a fucking Justin Gaethje coming to you for help must be so hard to try and change your game. But like, you see, Usman's jab now is probably the best part of his game.
I couldn't agree more. His jab is a class jab.
Yeah, and he came from a camp. Henry Hooft, who's a ex Dutch kickboxer, a great coach as well. So it would have been hard to take Usman from that camp and try and change something, and yet Trevor Whitman was able to do it.
I just if you've got a good wrestling base, let's say you come from a wrestling background, and you, let's say, go and train like we said before, if you went and trained for 6 months doing kickboxing, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, whatever, and let's say you do a couple training sessions of wrestling in the week as well to keep yourself sharpened up. I just don't see why wrestlers don't do that, and even vice versa, strikers. Why don't you go to like Khabib and just say, just train me for 6 months? Like, if you go under that scrutiny with Khabib for 6 months in Dagestan, like, you're never gonna have a better training camp than that.
Yeah, agreed. No, I don't see, again, if I was, if I could put into a little fucking mixture of what I would do, I would send guys to Khabib, AKA is their camp, where Daniel Cormier is the captain, and the captain, but the retired captain now, which their sole focus is heavy wrestling, or go train with a Kamaru Usman or the guy that just beat Dan Hooker recently.
Oh, Chandler.
Chandler, yeah. If you ever watch the videos of him and Usman wrestling, I mean, you start sweating watching it. The fucking work those lads put in the wrestling training is insane. And the only thing is, with wrestling, it's probably the most, it's where all the injuries come from as well. So you got to be careful training that heavily. But again, if you're a good striker and you want to up your game, absolutely, that's where you want to go. Go to Khabib and say, listen, I want to fucking wrestle. I'm no better man. Go to Daniel Cormier. Go train roll with guys like Kamaru Usman and these boys who will fucking make you work. And worst case scenario, maybe you're not going to be a guy who's going to do takedowns, but you will defend a takedown.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's exactly a good example, and that's the thing that people forget about. It's not all about. The thing about wrestling is wrestlers can decide whether they want to strike or whether they want to go to the ground. That's what wrestling does for you. You get to dictate. If you're fighting a guy who is not a wrestler or isn't a great wrestler, then you control that cage. You decide whether we stand up or we go to the ground. Because if you're a good wrestler, he tries to take you down. He's not going to take you down because you know what you got to do to stay on your feet. And if you decide, okay, this guy's striking is a little better than mine, I'm taking it down. It is the foundation of. I've only learned in the last few years, because I've said it to you before, I thought jiu-jitsu was the one to learn, but wrestling is the foundation of MMA. In fact, wrestling is the foundation of fighting. It's the foundation of, if you want to become martial artist, if you want to be somebody who can fight, wrestling is the foundation. It's what you build everything else off, because you dictate where things go.
I'm very surprised that you said it's the most injuries come from. I'd have thought striking would have definitely caused the most injury.
No, if you like with striking, of course, it's not good when you're getting hit. But with striking, it's usually when you're sparring, you're told, go unless if either you're having a heavy spar, you're told, listen, go full on sparring, get your headgear on, or beat the shit out of each other, depending on what camp you're in. But usually you're told, go your 50%, your 60%. Which that's not to say you can't still get hurt, but you mix that in with your wrestling, and your wrestling is you're fucking getting slammed down. You're getting, if you mix like an open spar, so you imagine an open spar with your striking and your wrestling, you're getting slammed on your head, man, slammed on your back, getting a man's weight down on top of you. It's usually where you're mostly beat up, but I tell you, it's where the hard work comes from.
Makes sense.
And some of the best some of the best guys to cut weight as well have always been wrestlers, because they, in their day, like when they're just wrestling, they used to do the heaviest weight cuts as wrestlers as well. I don't know why. Was it just to do the same thing as they're doing in the UFC? But some of the best weight cutters, some of the guys who are able to cut weight pretty handily, are usually ex-wrestlers, because they work hard at it, and they cut it always very last minute for the wrestling camps and the wrestling competitions as well.
Sounds like it's just something that you should implement into your UFC like a lot. Like it's just something like who was it? I think it was Rogan again who said for the Ngannou, the first Miocic fight, he didn't do any wrestling because he just didn't like it. So, and then obviously the result happened, which happened. But the minute you say, right, you need like his striking is, he just hits like a truck, doesn't he? That's the thing. It's just he's scary with it. He's wired. He's still a bit wired. I know, obviously, against Miocic, he was patient and like he was a lot more clinical with his strikes. But other than that, he's just wild with it. Like you say, he's like a wilder. Like he just swings, and if he just even passes you, it's probably going to knock you out.
Yeah, like the thing with that kind of power, if your technique is reasonable, and it's better, like his is better than reasonable, but it's not perfect. All you got to do is land it somewhere. Now, going by the Miocic fight, it looked a lot better than what it has been. So I don't know. But then go back to when he fought Rosenstrike. I mean, it was fucking horrible. It was the worst striking you'd ever see. But in my opinion, I think now after seeing the Miocic fight, he just wanted to do that. He wanted to bum rush him and just swing like crazy. But like, had he got clipped in that fight and knocked out, he'd have been shit on for months for how bad his striking was. It's just okay because he won. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's
is he
got that power.
Derek? Did I hear this? Is he fighting Derek Lewis next? Is that
supposedly that's what's happening? Yeah. That's your money in the UFC. You see, I like it. I tell you why I like it. I like it for Derek Lewis, because I like Derek Lewis and I want to see him make money. But that is not the fight they should be making. They should be making John Jones versus Ngannou. There's this. They were close to getting that fight supposedly. Then Dana White came out with this thing saying, "Oh, fucking John Jones looking for 30 million before he even fights. Like, we're not doing that." But then John Jones come out saying, "Don't know where the fuck he got this 30 million for. Like, there's no way I'm looking for that much." Which makes no sense. Like, John Jones would not come out and say it. Normally what Jones would do, come out and he put a big list of why he deserves this money. But he came out and he said, "No, I didn't ask for 30 million. I don't know where you're getting that from." So something is happening where typical UFC, they just don't want to pay him. Why?
I thought it was 10 million. I thought it was 10 million he asked for. Something.
No, they offered him 10 million and he said he's not taking 10. So he's probably looking for like 15, 20. Big money, but man, they pay the fucking man. Why not? You know, you're going to make every cent of it back off this fight. Like
that will be that will be the biggest pay-per-view in UFC, maybe. Other than McGregor, if you take out McGregor's fights, it probably would be the biggest.
I could see it challenging one of McGregor's numbers, not his Khabib number, but
no,
like one of his other 5 or 6, however fucking many he holds in the top 10. But it's gonna be up there. It's gonna definitely break some big numbers. But they're saying, you know, like Dana White, as good as he is, he's fucking ruthless. Like, he's saying that he can't do this because if I do this, then every other fighter is going to want that. But not every other fighter is John Jones. Like, the simple answer to that is, the fighter comes asking you, say, you can have this as soon as you do what he did. And they can't do what he did, so they can't get the money. Simple as.
He's undefeated. You know? He's undefeated and he's beat everybody. Like, how can you even compare yourself? Like, there's one other fighter, and that's Khabib, that can say that's the only person. So
yeah,
if I was, I'd just give him the money and just say, here, just take my money, whatever. He's
Yeah, and like the other thing which you see people saying online as well is that, oh, but John Jones doesn't sell that many pay-per-views. He does. He doesn't sell McGregor numbers, but if you look at his pay-per-views, they're very consistent. They're not huge McGregor numbers, but they're not that far off. But the good thing about them is they're all pretty consistent. So he sells a nice big chunk of pay-per-views over a long period of time. Now, again, it's not McGregor numbers, but we can't keep comparing to McGregor. And at the same time, Jones is a better fighter and a much better record than what McGregor has. It's just McGregor is unfortunately a
talks a
superstar.
fuck. And he talks a yeah. He's a talker. Jones
Yeah.
is not. He just Jones is proper chilled, really, and he just.
And the
I
funny,
look,
the funny thing is, like, it's apparently it's McGregor that's been telling John Jones, listen, don't fucking take that money. You're worth a lot more. He's been in the background telling him, no, fucking fight for your money. You'll get it. Like, and he's right.
yeah, you're right. Like I reckon how much do you reckon McGregor's the most he's made? How much do you reckon he made off the Khabib fight? $50 million? More?
He would have made somewhere in around boxing money anyway. Like, you're talking, I don't know. You'll never know, but you're probably looking at your 30 million, 40 million ish. Definitely.
I'd say, yeah.
And that's
sure.
that's only what you'll probably get on paper. Then you're talking about what he gets off the advertising proper whiskey, fucking his pay-per-view bonus. The man gets so much, like, it's sickening, but at the same time he has earned it. You know, you can't deny that. But I just would like to see it spread out a little more. Give a few more guys some money as well. You know, fuck me, the UFC has it.
You know he smacked your man, the old fella. Did you
Yeah.
see he's bought that pub?
Yeah.
And he barred him.
Was it that guy he barred?
He barred your man who he hit.
Fuck yeah. Because I saw that headline and I just kind of scrolled past it because I don't know, some of it I don't entertain anymore, but I was like, oh, who did he bar? And I didn't pay attention to it. So obviously isn't that real? Like, that's what they call fuck you money. When you're that rich, you can just do this to piss somebody off.
Do what the fuck you. I bet he did that purely just to bar your man.
Probably doesn't. Like, he probably bought it for someone else. Said, here, listen, I'll give you a pub, but just bar that cunt.
Oh, mate, that is living the dream, isn't it?
I'll tell you what, before we get on to the main event, actually, because it's just as well I have you here because you're reminding me of a lot of things I had on the notes. Did you see McGregor is doing a heap ton of fucking running lately? More than I've ever seen him do. So they're working on some sort of game plan anyway, because he's been constantly doing heavy running, whatever it is, whether it's he's working on something with his game plan against Poirier, I don't know. There's been a big thing with him and Nate Diaz. They've been going over and back on Twitter, which it's been fucking brilliant. The two of them are seriously entertaining over and back, like. But basically, because you know McGregor has his program, it's called the McGregor Fast. It's his like training program. It's like it's basically another one of his companies. But every time he's training, he says that's what his training is, the McGregor Fast program. If anybody wants to buy it, but he was doing all his running over and back. But him and Nate Diaz anyway over and back on each other, and Nate Diaz said he's like, fuck you, man. I thought I'm the one who brought all the running and the swimming to this shit. You have no idea what the fuck you're doing. And then McGregor wrote back saying, yeah, how about you bring out your program called Diaz Slow instead of the McGregor Fast? It's been like a funny kind of banter over and back between the two of them. It's been brilliant. But that's what
they love doing. It. I think they love each other, really, don't they? They like
that's what a lot of people are thinking. They think that it's like 10% hate, 90% love, really. Like,
like McGregor, I think especially respects him anyway, because like
you have to respect the Diaz brothers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I will never forget. It was like after he said, I just kept hitting him, and his face was split open, but he just kept coming, and I'm like, "Fuck off!" And he's like, he literally said that, and he said, "You just can't not respect that." Like his face is bleeding like a fucking cattle that's just been slaughtered.
Yeah.
He just keeps coming and coming. So
he's done. If you see in both of the McGregor fights, in the one he won and the one he lost, where like obviously the first one McGregor had taken over the fight early, was winning. All of a sudden Diaz just kicks into this new gear, starts jabbing the body, and it's just tapping you to the face constantly. No major power, but just this relentless pressure. And even then in the second fight where McGregor was better and had pretty much the fight was pretty much won heading into, I think it was the third or fourth round.
Yeah.
Diaz just started to take over again. You're like,
Wasn't it? It really was that. I think it was late into the second. To be honest, I mean,
it could have been. It kicked into gear at some point anyway. Yeah, like could have been late in the second as well. I'm not 100%, but he was just looking, going, oh, "Fuck, here we go!" Like this is where he's kicked into that new Diaz gear. Like you see his sorry, go on.
So I got literally like 10 minutes just to, or not even like, not even 9 minutes I got. So we might want to get in.
We managed to do it again, so fucking talk about everything but what we were supposed to talk about. Okay, so let's get into this main event. So seeing as I started everything off, I'll let you start this one. What do you think?
I'm surprised how he won. I thought he would wrestle him again, but he outboxed the boxer.
Yeah. I mean,
pretty much.
There's not a whole lot to say other than he just fucking...
He battered it. I thought Usman did, or Masvidal put a far better effort in their first fight.
Yeah.
In their first fight, anyway. Yeah.
But I think, again, that could be down to...
Usman wasn't 100%?
I don't know about that. It could have been, because he said he had his nose broken. But I think, again, it could be Trevor Whitman. I can't talk up that guy enough. I think they picked up on some things that nobody else sees. Now, to be fair, the way he won, there wasn't this like insane. It was just really nice boxing tech. The way he slapped his guard hand out of the way and fucking put that down the pipe, which if ever you were to look at a right hand go down the pipe, it's a perfect example.
It was straight as a die. Like it was just
right down
on the money.
And he was out. Like when he touched him, he was out. I know he landed a couple of extra shots, but Masvidal was out cold. And he said, credit to Masvidal afterwards, he said he didn't expect him to land that shot. And he said, how can I'm always getting these fucking quotes mixed up in my shitty Irish accent, but it's something in the terms of like, how can I not be a fan of the way he finished that fight? Or how can I not respect that? Which is a great way to have respect for a guy after he beats you. But I mean, it's another question of who beats that. Well, there is some guys that could probably beat him in that division, but there's no outliers. There's nobody where I kind of say, oh, here's his challenge.
What? He's fighting Colby next, isn't he? So, I mean...
I love that fight.
It's a good fight. I actually watched their fight, and he caused them a few problems, didn't he? The first, 2-3 rounds.
I think Colby is a little like the Diaz brothers, only probably with better wrestling. With better wrestling. But he's has good, that pressure. But the only thing is, which is why I think he puts another good challenge. I think you're going to see a fight that's going to wear on both of them. But Masvidal carries that power, which is what happened in the last time they fought. When somebody carries, it's okay when somebody is fit and they're able to last a fight. But when somebody has the same power from the start of the fight to the end, that's scary. I don't care who the fuck you are. When you know that this guy has the power to put you the fuck out in the 5th round, last 10 seconds, as much as he does in the 1st round, that's where I give the edge to Kamaru. Yeah, because I
can't see anyone beating him. He's got probably the best rounded game in the UFC.
And the scary thing is, still seems to be improving, which is quite fucking spooky. Still looks to be getting better as he goes.
Like you say, his wrestling is unreal, but his striking. But like I say, his boxing, he outboxed Masvidal, and I didn't think that he would ever do that.
And that's the thing, that's the part of it, because going back to the wrestling again, it's so good to have, and he has that solid foundation that he works on all the time, but does not need to use it. That's his break glass in case of emergency kind of thing. Like, he doesn't need to use it now. His boxing's getting better. He's happy to stand there and trade with you. And if you happen to get the better of him on the feet, he's going to go, here we go. Now I'm going to fucking put you. Now I'm going to take you into deep waters. But Colby is a challenge for him. It's a fight that I would definitely watch. And I do think Leon Edwards and Michael Chiesa are two guys, outliers in that division. Not clear-cut guys to worry about, but they're outliers that I could see maybe potentially in the future causing a problem. But again, no, I can't really say it's just that they're outliers. They're people I would maybe say they're worth looking at, but Usman is the
I'd say,
man.
Darren Till, I feel quite sorry for it, because he's such a class fighter, and he's just lost a few too many recently, isn't he?
And it's things going against him. Like, he has shown in the fight with Robert Whittaker, which was a great fight. It was one of these. there's certain fights that, like, when you have a boring fight where guys do nothing, but then you have a fight where guys are trying to read each other. And Whitaker and Darren Till, that's all they did for that fight, was just trying to pick their way in. And, as soon as they've moved in, the other guy would have something to answer back with. And it was just a great fight. And I think that's a side of Darren Till's game that's got to be respected as well, because a bit like we were talking about in Ngannou, when a guy can be that patient with the abilities they have rather than get out like a crazy person, that ability to be patient in a fight is a class thing to have.
He doesn't train he trains in England, doesn't he, Till?
Yeah, he trains with I don't know the name, but it's his long time trainer.
It's like America must have such an edge in training to the UK. Like there's, like you say, like college wrestling is such a big thing in the US, but
yeah,
I've never even heard of it over here. Like he could almost do with going to like America and training for a year or something like that.
Well, even if you say, because in terms of kickboxing and Thai boxing and all that around Europe and in the UK, it's there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. They have top class, and even wrestling and all that is improving. But the problem is training partners. You're looking at world class training partners. You get great strikers and stuff like that. But you go to a camp like American Top Team, you go to fucking AKA where Khabib and the boys are, or go to Trevor Whitman's camp. You're going in there with some of the best, the guys who you're going to be rolling with guys who have done their thing in the UFC, have been there, done that. That's how you improve. And then you've also got the masterminds behind that. And it always helps. But that's not to say you can't still do it with a different camp. I mean, John Kavanagh in Dublin, Ireland, nobody ever heard of him until McGregor burst on the scene. But when you pay attention to John Kavanagh, he's a fucking genius.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's the coaches there. They just need that superstar fighter. But my opinion, I totally agree with you. I think if a guy really wants to do it, keep your coach. I agree with keeping your coach, but maybe have your coach come with you, because camps will allow that. Have him come with you, but you train with a certain camp. You can do it that way too.
But when it happens like that, you've got two voices in your ear and they don't always agree. So you've got to kind of like move on, or
that is the problem. But that's where it all comes down to what your coach is like, whether your coach is willing to do that, whether the coach of the other camp is willing to do that. So it is hard. But I mean, if you're a good enough fighter, if the money is there, they will. The idea is the best fighters prioritize the camp around them, But in the sense of they prioritize around them, as in they get everything they need, but the coach still decides what they got to do, because that's his job. I mean, which I worried about McGregor for a lot, was if you're a fighter who's running your camp, it's not good. I don't think a fighter should ever run his camp, but you should have everything you need, if that makes sense.
No, definitely not. I mean, I can imagine McGregor, like, he's probably training on his fucking boat, and he's probably training on his boat, and like he's not. And then you look back to like obviously Marvin Hagler. He was talking. He took himself away from it. He actually went to like a prison. He literally trained in a prison for like, what was it, 12 weeks? Like out, no comfort. He said, I was there to literally train all day. I ate, I went to sleep, and repeat. Whereas McGregor, like you say, he's probably training. Is he in Abu Dhabi or something training?
I was going to say that. I wasn't sure, but when I was telling you about the videos I've seen him running, it looks fucking beautiful for starters. And then I could have sworn in the background I've seen some of those guys, the hoods, the chic guys. So I was like, this fucking over training,
Yeah, so he's probably over in Abu Dhabi, which is normally not a bad thing. Like the heat. Like if he's running in those heats, his cardio will go through the roof. So it's probably not a bad thing. But if you're living that lavish lifestyle on the side, plus he's probably making £1 million fucking pound a minute or whatever the fuck he earns. I don't know what he earns, but
that's true. You have to wonder, is it a case of? But I suppose it depends on the fighter too. But I agree with you. I think, you go to war, you got to train like you're going to war. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. I think you got to be. But yeah, look, at the same time, he has the money to be in a place where everything is catered for him. It looks like he's getting his work in. You just never know. Sometimes when you make that kind of money, you got to wonder, are you been trained the way you would have done 10 years ago or however long ago when you were coming up? That's what happens when these boys get rich. It looks like he's fucking training hard, but mostly cardio. And of course, Instagram training is never like real training, so you don't know either.
No. I mean, you would never have heard of Jack Dempsey. He was a fighter he's a boxer from early 1900s. And then he was 15. He used to fight in the streets for money because if he didn't win, he didn't eat, basically. And he said, like, like, I always got up because if I didn't eat. And like, that's, how can you beat that? If somebody's that desperate.
Well, a prime example, like we were talking about, and this isn't even as long ago, the Diaz brothers, when they were younger, Nate Diaz, the younger brother, the only reason he took up fighting and training was because whoever he trained with, or I think his brother's crew, that they would train, and then afterwards they would go for food and buy tacos and stuff like that, and they would buy stuff for Diaz. That's the only reason, the younger Diaz brother, that's the only reason he really trained. And the same with, if you listen to, it's not the same kind of story, but John Wayne Parr, who's a world-class Thai boxer, when he went over to Thailand, they were like they were shitting in a hole in the ground. He said they were sleeping like pretty much cuddling 10 men every night they would sleep. This is the kind of conditions they had. And they said, like, he was making such little money that he had to fight as regular as possible to get to the big fights, and you're talking fighting once a week, which is why the Thais don't actually spar a lot. It's quite crazy.
I don't think you ever get, like, ain't fighting. It's a poor man's sport, or you're, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, you're never gonna get, like, it's, what was it? Tyson's. He's like, he was saying his son wanted to, like, box and all that, and he said, "You don't want to be in the ring with an animal like me who has nothing to lose."
It's fucking true, and it's true.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, put it this way, if you're rich, you can be rich and still be somewhat of a great fighter, I think, but you need to be able to go there. You need to have had some shit. You need to have something. If you're somebody who's been poor, you can rely on that. If you're somebody who has money, but there's got to be something. There's got to be a fight. It can't just be that you want to test yourself. That's not the same. Like, fighters, literally, like Tyson said, you're going to be in there with an animal, a guy who's thinking about ripping your head off and fucking with your head,
eating your children.
Yeah, the guy. He's dreamt about this shit. You gotta go in there and have that dog mentality. So there needs to be some. One of my favorite things I always love to listen to is David Goggins talks about a thing he calls the cookie jar, and his cookie jar is a thing in his head. It's where he looks back at all the bad shit he's been through in his life, where people talk shit about him, where they called him the N-word and they called him fat when he was overweight, but said he'd be nothing. And he thinks of every person, every single thing that was ever said about him that he can remember is in the cookie jar. So when he's running, when he's training and he feels like giving up and he's tired, he picks a piece out of the cookie jar. Starts to get tired again, another piece. So before you know it, he's gone into fucking superhuman mode.
That's a good way to look at it, isn't it? I guess
it's just a different kind of mentality. But that's what people need to remember before doing this shit.
Yeah, Wes, mate, I'm gonna have to get on. This is
because I don't want to get you fired for this podcast. Listen, as always, Ian, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you doing it a bit earlier your side and later in the week.
Not a problem. No, it was good. That was a good one to talk to.
Yeah.
And you can watch, mate. You have watched Saunders Canelo this weekend.
I fucking will, and one good thing about you is you always remind me about the boxing coming up. So.
And there's Chisora Parker as well.
But when is what the fuck is his name? Ruiz, isn't he coming up soon?
Yeah, he might be even next. Fuck, he might be even next week, actually.
Yeah, I know that because.
No, do you know what? Saunders, they might be the week at. Double check. No, I think Parker and Chisora's next week, or this coming weekend, and then it's the following weekend.
No, I'm going to watch it because there's still good UFC fights, but there's a little dip this week, naturally enough, after the last mad weekend. But anyway, Ian, I will let you go so you don't get fired.
No worries, mate. Have a good one.
We'll set it up again for next week. All right, take it easy.